All right, everyone, it's time for today's first video. We got to talk about Trump's polling. It has remained actually pretty elevated, all things considered, considering the hyperpartisan atmosphere within politics right now. One would think that Trump would probably not even crack 40, actually. Supposedly, there's a civil war within the Republican Party. Trump is losing favor with his voters. MAGA has failed, and all of these hyperbolic things. Yet his polling, in some cases, is actually above 50%. According to Insider Advantage, I believe it's at 55. Link in the description, not archived. This is an RCP article. They help with poll aggregation very much and are generally unbiased, so I'm not going to archive their articles anymore when they're direct. You've got some others that show him below water, but nothing that really shows him deep underwater. Like, at Biden, at his darkest moments, he was struggling to remain in the 30s, basically. This apparently has not happened to Donald Trump, and I think I know why. He's got widespread approval with regards to the border crisis. This even extends to some liberal voters. You've got at least an attempt at diplomacy that sort of echoes the Abraham Accords thing, and that was wildly popular at the time, which is why the legacy media sort of didn't want to even talk about it. Well, how are we supposed to cast the idea of peace breaking out in that general region as a bad thing? Oh, we can't because there's no way to do it? Well, then we just won't talk about it. This happened several times during Trump's presidency. It's totally different from the Biden presidency. Under the Biden presidency, you had a couple of instances where there were big sweeping changes that were made, but they were just hyper-partisan. With Donald Trump, the changes that he's trying to make, generally speaking, are unity messages more than anything else. I don't think that most Americans want more taxes. I think they want less of them. I don't think that most Americans want war. They would prefer to not engage in warmongering. I don't think that the average American, at least one eligible to vote, by the way, would want a loose border. These are unifying messages, and the list goes on and on. The idea of extracting energy to become a net exporter again, that seems to be something that's relatively popular. I realize that the cringe fringe of the left doesn't really want that because they think that it'll turn the world into Tatooine or something like that. It'll become inhospitable and die. But other than that, other than a fairly small cohort of individuals, most people agree with the concept of American energy independence. I think that's a fairly unifying message. Again, the list goes on. So Trump's polling right now, he's in the upper 40s. This is about as good as you can possibly get in such a hyper-partisan atmosphere. If Trump were to go above 50, it would be a miracle. I don't expect that, by the way, to actually happen. His honeymoon period was muted and brief, but then you have a stabilization at a level that is considerably higher than the average president, actually. I think part of this is the result of him being compared to the prior administration. So you have a dysfunctional administration that is extremely opaque, bad on messaging. You have the destruction of the economy effectively, and a bunch of wars break out. Well, when you're being compared to that, because people have recency bias, that much we have to admit is true. It's not going to be very hard to be more popular than that prior administration. Now, what happens from here? Attrition will kick in. Donald Trump's polling numbers may very well go down. But I don't think he's in any real imminent danger of becoming an unpopular president. Upper 40s is by modern standards, is popular. Back in the day, it would have been, hey, I'm at 55. Haha, the people love me. Now it's basically, if I'm at 45, haha, that's pretty good. We've literally, I think at the moment, got 47 for 47, by the way. I think that's the aggregated total at the moment in RCP, which is hysterical because he's the 47th president. He's only the second president to have a non-consecutive second term, of course, after Grover Cleveland. We might not see this again in our lifetimes, including those of you that actually live a long lifetime. I do not expect by my lifestyle to be counted as one of them, by the way. But Trump is doing a reasonably good job. I would say better than his first term. In his first term, there was a time when his approval kind of faltered. It doesn't seem to be happening this time, which is good for him. It gives him more of a mandate. He can impress upon the Senate and House Republicans more if he's doing it from a position where he's generally approved of by the public, because they won't want to oppose him unless they're in a district or a state where they know that their position is safe. It allows him to lean on them more. This is why the liberals, by the way, here's the secret. You want to know the secret? The liberals are resorting to lawfare because they know that Donald Trump is reasonably popular enough to be able to impress upon the House and Senate. And he has a majority in both. That's the only reason that they're doing that. Normally, they wouldn't stoop to that level because it just looks odd and it's time consuming and in some cases doomed to fail. Basically, you're just slowing down the agenda. You're not actually winning the war. You're just winning a battle. That's basically what the liberals at the moment are doing, and the uniparty Republicans too, the Bitch McConnells of the world and people like that. And then you've got the fringe on the other side, Rand Paul, Massey, some of these others that are standing in the way of certain things, but that's more situational. I'll give them a pass for now, but I would warn them, of course, if you don't like the big beautiful bill, you can always pass it and then amend it. That's always a possibility. You have to pass the original bill first, though, because otherwise Trump's probably not going to sign anything because you won't be putting it on his desk. Well, that becomes a problem because Republican voters will retaliate against you. And I don't want to see the Rand Pauls of the party kicked out of the Senate and the House. So, that would be a bad thing, in my opinion. So Trump's polling under the circumstances is actually pretty good. Which is funny because again, you get these legacy media articles saying he's doomed and he's failed and he's fallen and people get buyer's remorse and that doesn't appear to be reflected in the aggregated numbers. Maybe if you cherry pick the polls, there was one that put him at -10, but then there's one that puts him at +8. So, pick and choose. That's quite a wide spread now, isn't it? This is why we use aggregators. That's about all. Peace out.